All right. So, as you know, we went to the Rock and Pod Expo this weekend. Our second interview of the day was one of my yacht rock favorite people, and there again, I'm also getting tongue tied and getting
Dude,
word
you're
messed
still
up.
having a fanboy
Stop.
moment.
But
Just say just
we interviewed
simple,
we
short.
interviewed. Okay, there we go. Walter Egan, the man who wrote, Magnet and Steel. I mean, there you go. You can't go any. You can't say much about that. I learned actually though. It was funny. We talked about this earlier. I learned more about that one song in that short interview that we had than I've listened to it for over 20, 30 years now. So it's like I can't believe that I didn't know who was there and who was at. Got a lot of great inside information about that song, and the fact of that he actually instead of being one of those people who doesn't like to be a one hit wonder, he's kind of glad. I mean, he accepts it and goes along with it. So here's our interview with Walter Egan. Welcome to the Ages of Rock podcast. We're here live at the Rock N Pod Expo in Nashville, Tennessee. Right now, besides me, I have Walter Egan. And it's a big thrill for me. Ever since we heard that he was going to be here, I've been Mr. Fanboy.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. It's nice to know I still have a few out there.
Exactly. Walter, you live here in Nashville?
Just a bit south in Franklin, Tennessee.
Franklin, Tennessee.
Historic Franklin.
Exactly. Beautiful town down
where
there.
they widen the roads 24 hours a day. It's more people moving in there. I've been here actually about 20 years now.
Really?
Which is hard to believe for me. I've never been anywhere more than 18 years before that. So
that's awesome.
But it's a nice place to be. And my kids, one's in New York and one's in LA. So I figure I'd cut the difference and be in the middle, so
You're
I
about
could get
halfway
to
in the
either
Midwest
one.
here, so.
Yeah,
But well, I tell you what, you can't say the word Walter Egan without thinking of Magnet and Steel.
well,
I mean, it is. I mean, like I said, I am one of those people who my hidden like is yacht rock, and yacht rock has just become that. Just now,
it's a big thing all of a sudden.
For some reason, I mean, the category's been around for a while, but it's been called yacht rock just over the last few years.
it shows you the beauty of rebranding. There's a band out of Atlanta called the Yacht Rock Review, and I've done a bunch of shows with them, and it's like going to a frat party. They're wearing the captain's hats, and everybody's, and it's a great. I think it's very refreshing to people these days to hear melodic music. That is not too repetitive yet.
Exactly.
and so people respond to it, and of course, the illusion of newness by calling it yacht rock instead of oldies. Ooh, it's the oldies
Was it
guy.
AM Gold there for a while?
Yeah,
It was
well,
called that,
but yeah, and it was nice to be included in that, even though I feel like I'm on the fringe maybe of yacht rock, because Magnet and Steel, of course, it is my calling card, but if you listen to the rest of the album, it's much more up-tempo and it's much more rocky. I've been kind of mislabeled a crooner many times through the years, but nobody sets out to be a one-hit wonder, and I'm happy to have my own page in the one-hit wonder book by Joel Whitburn, but I consider, I have the song Hot Summer Nights,
Right.
which should have been
Great song.
released during the summer, oddly enough, by Columbia Records back in the day.
Right.
But it strangely has gone on to be the most covered song that I've ever written.
Really?
There's a group called Night that had the hit with it in 1979, and that was worldwide. And from there's a French version, Vandelevla. There's a Swedish version, because Flat Summer the Dog. And there's a German version, Japanese version. I have a band, my high school band's called the Malibus, and we've reconstituted after I had success, and we continue to play. I played with them last month, and I have a new version of the lyrics for that version of
Right.
it. And to top it off, In 2009, I got a call from EMI, which held the publishing at that point, and said, "You've got to approve this record. It's coming out. It uses your song Hot Summer Nights." And I said, "Oh, great." And I expected it to be, a needle drop or a quote of the hook, or and it was really the feel, and it was the chords, and it was Eminem's song "We Made You." Previously, Eminem was just my favorite candy, but now he's my favorite rocker. Oh, he's going all the way, and it's amazing. He still sells CDs in this day and age, or at least he did, whatever that is, 7 years ago now.
Right.
8 years.
Well, now you're speaking of Eminem. Did you actually work with him when he did that song, or did they come to you after the fact?
Very much after the fact, and I'm still puzzled as to how it came to be. I'm listed as one of the 5 writers with Marshall and Dr. Dre and 2 other people that I have no idea about. And he got a VMA award for the video. It's a very funny video he did of that, where, he had caricatures of all these celebrities in it. And I have a lot of people to thank, and it's going, oh, great, here we go. Eminem's going to say my name on national TV. No, he didn't. And so I really have no idea how it happened, whether, it was random, or whether it happened to be like one of his favorite songs when he was a kid, or Dr. Dre. I have no idea. But it gave me a lot of credibility with my son and with the younger people in general.
Exactly.
So it's nice.
Now, as far as, the song's been around and it's been popular and keeps coming up. Was it when they started putting it in movies like Boogie Nights, is that when it really got the resurgence?
Well, yeah, of course that helped a lot. The first movie that it was in was called The Night We Never Met, which is the Matthew Broderick movie. But they didn't use the original. They had a re-recording by Jeffrey Steele, ironically enough. And I guess they figured, with that name, he's got to do a great job. And so that was mildly thrilling to go to a theater and to witness that. But then, I got a call from New Line Cinema about a movie that they were including Magnet and Steel in the script. And it was called Overnight Delivery. It had Reese Witherspoon and Paul Rudd in their early career. And in fact, they were using it 3 times in the movie. And, they were high school sweethearts. Magnet and Steel had been their song. The very first scene in the movie, Charlene, however you say her name.
Oh, yeah.
You know the one I mean.
Exactly.
She is in a car and with Paul Rudd, and they're obviously reuniting after having gone away to college. And she gives him a present, and he goes, "Oh, what's this?" And it's a heart on a pendant heart on a necklace. And she goes, "Don't you remember?" And then she slips the cassette in the player. Cassette, yeah. And there I am singing Magnet and Steel, and she shows that she has one, and they kiss, and they're magnetic hearts, and they come together. So it's a very touching scene, especially touching because the other 2 usages were a remake of Magnet and Steel by Matthew Sweet,
right?
Which I never understood how it was cheaper for them to remake it than it was to use the original, but. It's a mysterious thing, but you're right. When they started, and then it was while we were doing that negotiation, they said, well, we have this other film. You might not want to be, it's an R-rated Burt Reynolds movie. And it was like, at that time, Burt hadn't really made the comeback yet. And it was like, well, whatever. Yeah, use it, sure. And so that was Boogie Nights. And Boogie Nights, they used it for a very long section in Boogie Nights, so that was great. And I don't know. It's hard to explain, I mean, I know having Stevie on it, and of course the story has been told many times, but my inspiration for Magnet and Steel was Stevie. Stevie was producing my first album at the time, singing backgrounds one night on a song called Tunnel of Love, which is my most salacious number, by the way.
Right.
My grandmother was a bit shocked at that song. But, and it's mild, of course, compared to what's out these days. But, of course, you can only push the envelope so far in each generation, I guess. But, yeah, she was wailing away in her banshee voice, and I had been sort of smitten by her already. And on the way home, it was like 3:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. I was driving out to Pomona from Van Nuys in L.A., and a car pulled in front of me, and it was one of these what we used to call pimp mobiles, with a diamond window, with like neon lights underneath it and fringes around it and lowered. It was very cool, pimped out, yes. And the license plate was not shy, and I was like, oh.
There you go.
I like that idea, because I had been working on this song that was kind of a throwback to a 50s beat called The Stroll, and it seemed like the right thing. So by the time I got home, it was pretty much written. The magnet thing, I don't know, it just sort of was the metaphor that came to mind at the time. And then, of course, having her sing on it, I think connected it to some kind of magical power or something.
Right.
Because
Lindsay was the one who also co-produced that album too, right?
Of course. Well, that was the thing. My first album, Fundamental Role, was produced by Lindsay and Stevie as Buckingham Nicks.
Right.
They wanted to keep their identity outside of Fleetwood Mac at the time. They had just they were about a year and a half into Fleetwood Mac when I met them. And I had no idea who they were. I wanted Brian Wilson to produce that record. I wanted Todd Rundgren. I wanted, all my favorite producers. John Fogerty, I thought, that'd be cool. Said, well, how about Buckingham Nicks? Gee, I don't know. Who is Buckingham Nicks? All I knew was Don Nicks, who was like a southern rocker at the time.
Right.
And I was like, well, I don't know if I want to go that direction. No, listen to this, And sure enough, it was the Buckingham Nicks album, and it was very much like what I was doing. I had been in a band called Sageworth on the East Coast, and the lead singer in that band was a lady named Annie McClune. And Annie did a solo album for RCA, I think it was in '76. And she and I went to college together, and we spent a lot of time together during those years. And she became the third voice of those three voices in the background of Magnet and Steel.
Right.
And so it was a magical thing for me, the way that all the pieces seemed to fall in line when Lindsay and Stevie came into the project, and I learned, my middle name is Lindsay, his name is Lindsay. Our bands were very similar on separate coasts, and our influences, namely Kingston Trio and Beach Boys, who were very much the same. So it felt like very comfortable and very much like, wow, this is how it should be.
Where was that recorded at?
At the now famous Sound City.
I was just going to say that because I knew that Lindsay and they basically lived in that studio.
Well, that was how it came about. The engineer Dwayne Scott, who had worked on my demos, when it came to picking a producer, was the one who suggested Buckingham Nicks.
Right.
And he knew them from hanging around Sound City there.
Awesome.
And it was a great funky old studio out there, and now of course famous from the movie Dave Grohl put out. Now I'm in about 3 still shots in the movie. There's one that's mislabeled Buckingham Nicks session with Lindsay and Stevie and myself and Dwayne sitting at the control board. But it's my first sessions. I wasn't there when they recorded their album. 2 years before that, and so that's the story of my life. Well, aren't you Warren Zevon? No, I'm not Warren Zevon. I play writers' nights here in Nashville, and I'll play Magnet and Steel. People come up and they go, "Oh, I love that song." Who did that? And then so I was like, "Well, I did." No, the record. Who did the record?
Here's my driver's license. It was really me.
Semi under the radar, and I kind of like it that way.
You need a license plate instead of not shy. I said Magnet and Steel. That's
Well, it's kept me hungry all these years. I'm always like, well, but I could do that. And so, I keep doing it.
Yeah, Sound City has actually opened back up. Tom Skeeter's daughter has just reopened it again, and it went more digital this time around.
Of course.
My wife's best friend was one of his daughters, and she grew up, and she's got all kinds of stories talking about how Sound City was back in the 70s.
And Tom was a great guy. I loved him. And Joe Gottlieb, too.
Yeah.
They were really cool people. And of course, the equipment that really made Sound City were the Neve board and the Studer machine.
Right.
The Neve, of course, belongs to Dave Grohl now, and here in Franklin, there's a thing called the Jam Camp, and summer times it's music camp for about 2 weeks. And one day over there, one of the kids came up to me and he said, "Hey, my dad wanted me to tell you that he's got the 24-track Studer."
Oh, really?
I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
He might want that.
Yeah, some amazing stuff went on that machine.
Awesome.
Yeah, so, but yeah, Sound City, and I guess Ken Calais, who had worked with Fleetwood Mac,
Right.
just bought the record plant in Sausalito
Right.
and has reopened that, or kept it open, or however, what the case may be. So yeah, it's great that these old studios are still surviving. Although, you know, it's a different era now.
Exactly.
And I've been doing most of my recording at home. You know, my last few albums came out that way.
Right.
And, you know, I have a great drummer named Ronnie Krasinski, who's played with everybody from the Everly Brothers
Right.
to Seals and Croft to Sheena Easton.
So how often do you tour? I mean, do you tour quite a bit then, or do you stay?
Not as much as I'd like to.
Right.
I've been doing a lot of these Malibu dates out in California. We're playing on, I think it's the 20th of October, the Canyon Club, opening for Mickey Dolenz.
Oh yeah, from the Monkees.
Which is exciting. I just finished doing some gigs with a little outfit that we're calling American Classic Hitmakers,
Right.
which is really Dave Jenkins from Pablo Cruz,
Right.
his wife Jamie Kyle, who's written Faith Hill's first hit, A Wild One, and Stranded for Heart. She's a great singer and a lovely lady, doing it kind of as a trio.
Right.
And that's been a little fun. We played Stinson. We were up in Stinson Beach, played in San Rafael and Gilroy, the garlic capital of California, last weekend. That was kind of fun.
Great.
So yeah, I've been doing that, and I have my own band here in town. But most of it, you know, it's hard to support a band on the road these days.
Well, yeah.
You know, unless
Exactly.
you just go out for a few days and come back. So I'm setting up dates like that. I'm actually more or less debuting my promotion, as it were, of this new record, True Songs,
Right.
on iTunes, at McCabe's out in Santa Monica, which is a great venue. I'm going to do it partially solo acoustic, where I tell the stories behind the songs, and then have actually the Malibus are going to come up and back me for the
that's
second half
cool.
of the show.
That's
And that's
awesome.
going to be a lot of fun for me to have, because, you know, I love to tell the stories and do the intimate version, but I'm really a rocker, and I'm really, you know, most comfortable with a band behind me and,
Right.
and playing what I hear in my head for most of these songs.
That's awesome.
So
You
yeah.
got anything you want to add?
I think you about covered everything.
Oh.
Because it's
Oh, like
awesome.
I
I mean,
said,
this
it's
is
been-
great.
I've been
So,
like that,
can you
it's
tell us? So back in the day when Magnet and Steel was out, did you tour much for that
Oh,
record?
yeah,
I mean,
well-
was there? And who did you tour with?
That was a fun year. It, of course, came from my second album, Not Shy, which was released in, I guess, March of '78. And that year, I was on the road with Kansas, with Foreigner a lot, with Heart a lot. I did shows with the Beach Boys. I did shows with Fleetwood Mac at Alpine Valley, which of course was the most fun for me, where we got to play with one another, and Stevie and Lindsay joined me and I could join them. I guess those were the most. We did Dave Mason, did some shows with Dave Mason.
Right.
I did some shows with, I think, Ambrosia, although it might have been Exile. I'm not sure. I confused those two.
They're similar, yeah.
But yeah, and you know, and it was fun touring with Hart. Hart was really great band, and Ann was an amazing singer, and Nancy was like the coolest girl playing
she's just
guitar.
really-
You know,
She's still one of the coolest girls playing
really
guitar.
is.
We
She
just
really
saw her
is.
last year at
Yeah.
Cincinnati, and
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
really good. First
Yeah.
time I ever got to see him, it was fantastic.
I recently went to the Stevie and the Pretenders show that came through town. And Chrissy Hines still pretty cool playing guitar too. You know, that was neat. But that was fun getting to see her and do that. And I'm actually playing the Bluebird on the 20th
Awesome.
here in Nashville.
Awesome.
I'm not sure who's hearing this or who's going to see it, but
Oh,
yeah. And if it comes out soon, if this is going out on September 2nd in Franklin, there's a great club called Kimbro's that I'll be playing with my band and doing doing as much of the new material as possible. So yeah, I try to keep as busy as possible. I'd like to play a lot more, of course.
Exactly.
When I'm not playing music, I am now the sultan of substitute teachers in Franklin at a school called Centennial High School. Shout out to Centennial.
There you go.
And the Cougars. That's the funny name of the mascot, the Centennial Cougars.
Yeah.
And you know, some of those teachers.
Yeah, there you go.
Pretty cool. So you know, it's
So
kind
do
of
the
fun.
students know about your?
They pretty much know. I only sub in the one school, and it's fairly well known that not only am I the cool sub, but I've got this other life going on. You know, they pull out their phones and they go, "Mr. Egan, is that you?" Yeah, that's
awesome.
me.
And so you get parents wanting to meet you, and
Yeah, that's true. You know that.
Cougars, all the Cougars.
yeah, all the Cougars.
My mother said she was really a big fan of yours. Can you sign this for me? I said, well, I've already signed your planner 5 times, but I'll sign it. You know, it's like,
I'll sign your tardy slip,
Yeah,
but I'm not going to
exactly.
tell you.
It's kind of funny
I'm not
that
signing
way.
that.
So yeah, and actually, in the country world, there's a young female singer named Kelsey Ballerini.
Yeah, very
And
popular.
Kelsey is a wonderful girl. She went to Centennial.
Okay.
I actually played on her demos. So Kelsey, if you're listening,
That's awesome.
I'll be standing at the stage door. You know, don't forget me.
Let our audience know where they can find you online.
Sure. WalterEgan.com, of course, is my main website. But I'm mostly, you know, Facebook is Walter Lindsay Egan. If you do Walter Egan, you probably get my son. You know, I thought it was a nice idea to name him after me after having success. And then down the line, I've realized I've ruined his life. He can't really even Google his own name anymore. Walt, I'm sorry, man. Anyway, but yeah, but the new album is on iTunes and CD Baby. It's called True Songs.
Great.
It's
great.
got
We'll definitely
13 sizzling tracks for your listening enjoyment.
Well, Walter, we sure appreciate you coming and talking to us. Like I said, for me, it's been like I said, I've been looking forward to this interview. So.
Well, me too, Dennis. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
All right.
So,
Well, enjoy
Thank
your
you,
day
Walter.
here
Thank
at
you.
the
Appreciate it.
podcast episode.
yeah.